To begin, unlock the iPad and open the Boston Scanning app. If your patient is an existing patient, find their name and patient profile on the left side of the screen in the patient list. You may also search for their name in the upper left-hand corner. If they are a new patient, select New Patient in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. To add a new patient to the scanner, you will need their first and last name, patient ID number, gender, date of birth, height, and weight. Once finished, select Save Information at the bottom left-hand side of the screen. Have the patient lie supine. Wrap a long piece of 1-inch stockinette around the patient's waist, crisscross it anteriorly, and pull down to delineate the iliac crests, and then wrap it under the gluteal fold. Tie it off anteriorly or posteriorly to secure the stockinette in place. For a bivalve scan, 4 foam disc markers must be placed on the patient for the CAD department to stitch together the anterior and posterior scans. These disc markers are circular foam pads approximately 1 1/4 inches in diameter and 3/16 of an inch thick, with self-adhesive hook applied to one side. Find the patient's mid-sagittal line along their left and right side and apply 2 pieces of self-adhesive pile to each side of the patient, evenly spaced apart. Typically, one piece is placed around the patient's greater trochanter and the other is placed on the patient's lateral ribcage. Once the pieces of self-adhesive pile are applied, Velcro the foam discs in place. Position the patient so that their shoulder girdle, pelvis, and trunk are as neutral as possible in the coronal and transverse planes. Abduct the patient's arms 30 degrees or more to allow for scanning of the underarm area. Place the patient's arms down along their sides with slight elbow flexion and forearms pronated. Do not place the patient's arms above their head, as this will cause the latissimus dorsi muscles to splay, resulting in a less accurate scan. Place a pillow under the patient's knees if necessary to accommodate contractures or for comfort. If you have not done so already, connect the structure sensor to the iPad. Search for your patient in the patient list or add them to the scanner if they are a new patient. Select the double arrow button next to the torso to start a 2-piece scan. Begin by holding the iPad parallel to the patient and above them. Expand the bounding box if necessary, such that there is space on their left and right side within the bounding box. Select Start Scan and begin scanning. Scan the anterior profile of the patient, slowing down or stopping for key frames to fill in when necessary. Then scan the side of the patient that you are standing on, being sure to fully capture the foam disc markers. Once finished with this side, extend your arms over to the contralateral side of the patient to capture their anatomy, once again being sure to fully capture the foam disc markers. Once finished with the anterior scan, carefully log roll the patient to the prone position, being careful to prevent the disc markers from moving. Reposition the patient so that their head, abdomen, and pelvis are once again as neutral as possible. If they present with a hip flexion contracture, it may be necessary to angle the patient with their legs hanging off of the exam table in order to capture the scan in the most neutral position in the sagittal plane. The patient's parent can sit next to the table and hold the patient's legs in their lap to assist you. Tap the option to scan the second side of the patient. Complete the same process of scanning the patient's posterior and right and left side, ensuring to capture the shoulder girdle and pelvis in the scan, as well as clearly capture all 4 disc markers. Once finished, review the scan to ensure it is complete and place markers on the foam discs. Open the anterior scan and select the button in the bottom left corner that looks like a lollipop. You may rotate the scan by touching the screen with 1 finger, move the entire object by touching with 2 fingers, and pinch to zoom. Place a single marker on the center of each of the 4 foam disc markers. You may delete the markers placed and restart by pressing the trash can icon. When finished, deselect the marker icon in the bottom left corner and repeat this process with the posterior scan.